Time now to log a few miles on a middleweight sports machine that exploded onto the motorcycle scene back in the spring of 1991, Honda's CBR600 F2. Actually, the original CBR first appeared on the Canadian streets back in 1987, but in those days it was known as the Hurricane. It also had a reputation for being one of the most balanced, all-rounder bikes in the middleweight division. But 2 years ago, Honda unleashed a new generation CBR. The Hurricane name was gone, but the gale force the new bike generated was totally awesome. At the heart of the storm, sports enthusiasts discovered a very potent liquid-cooled 16-valve inline-4 that had been designed from scratch to be as light and compact as possible. Suspension components included a 41mm preload adjustable fork and a two-way adjustable decarbon-type shock. In the braking department, a single disc handles the stops out back, and a pair of Nissan twin-piston calipers grab 276mm discs up front. Back in '91, the CBR blew the 600 class wide open as it dominated racetracks across North America. This year, the CBR 600 enters its third season for the most part unchanged, but we thought it would be a good time to take another look at it to see if it's still as capable of blowing us away as it was back when it replaced the Hurricane.
It just feels like a treat to get on it. It's somebody who did something really right when they put this thing together. I think they took somebody just about my size and built the perfect motorcycle around it in terms of a combination of comfort and handling ability and so on. It's 3 years on, and the other manufacturers are just catching up to it, really. Some make a little more horsepower now, but they're still, at the track down here at Daytona, Honda's still right up there at the front. And as a street bike, light, flickable, and comfortable for, even a day-long tour.
Actually, it has quite a lot of horsepower. I did ride a 750 in the past, and I would say that this has every bit as much horsepower as my 750 had. And it has more horsepower than I think you could ever use on the street. If you were ever in a tight spot, all you have to do is just twist the throttle and you're gone. Yeah. It's a really quick bike.
Yeah, it's always been just a remarkable combination of power and civility. It doesn't want to get away from you. It's not scary, like there's no real peaks in the power band or jumps or anything like that.
No, actually, it's really smooth and comfortable, and changing gears was easy, and like I said, just give it a twist to the wrist and it takes off. It's a really nice bike. When I first grabbed the brakes, it was, whoa, you just stop right away. And so you have to kind of keep that in mind that, okay, you're coming up to a stop. You don't have to worry about slowing down well before the stop. But you've got lots of time, and there's lots of brakes there, and it's going to slow you down really smoothly as long as you just touch it softly, and you've got lots of brakes. You don't need to grab it.
The remarkable thing about this bike is that it's not only such a good race bike, it's had just an incredible track record, but it's, of all the 600s up to this year, it's by far the most civilized to ride around on the road. I mean, you can happily spend all day on this thing, except for the seat. The seat's a little thin, and a few hours in it you get to be a little sore, but other than that, I find the distance from the pace to the seat and the bars a nice reach. It's very comfortable. Suspension is quite compliant. It's very progressive. There's a fair bit of travel. But it's not soft and mushy. It'll suck up bumps without giving you any kind of a bang, but it's not sloppy like a lot of older bikes used to be. The instruments and so on are pretty much typical Honda. I found a very light action, there's nothing that's notchy or clicky at all, except for the turn signal. You mentioned it too. That
I did have some problem with the turn signal.
It's a push to cancel. You push it one way to turn it on and then push it in. And if it's not exactly centered, or if you push a little bit off, it doesn't cancel. You have to sort of fiddle around with it sometimes to make it go off. But that's really about the only control thing I had. And I agree that a fuel gauge would be nice. For more of a street-oriented bike, it would be pleasant to have. More useful probably than a temperature gauge, really,
right,
in the grand scheme of things. I've never seen one of these things overheat, so it might be a nice thing. But other than that, it really is typical Honda in that you might take or leave the color scheme. I don't know, some people like the real bright colors and splashes and others don't, but it's all well applied. It all lines up properly the way it should.
Yeah, I really like the graphics. I think it grabs your eye. It's a bright bike, and it's really sharp. I like the layout. I think it was really sharp.
Yeah, I like it too, but I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I don't know about this orange and all these shapes and stuff, but it works well on this one.
Very light and comfortable, lots of power. I was surprised with the power. And I really think that anyone could enjoy this bike, from someone who recently got their license to someone who's been enjoying street bikes for a long time. I think it's a bike that's well suited to just about anyone.
Riding this thing in the street, it doesn't feel any older than it did 3 years ago. It's still fresh and bright, and it works really well. It's really set the standard. It's amazing for what it was 3 years old. Quite incredible.
Just to recap, on the downside, we really had to get super critical. Both of our riders had trouble with the turn signals. Larry found the seat a bit thin, and we didn't like the CBR's gray plastic swing arm forms. On the upside, we loved the CBR's power delivery. The suspension was spot on, and we feel the CBR is still one great all-rounder, striking the perfect balance between racetrack performance and everyday rideability.